You're Between Two Dumbbells. I'm your host, Skip Hill, and I'm bringing over 40 years of bodybuilding experience to the table, including over 24 years of online coaching. I'm joined today by my co-host, Dr. Marv, aka the Educated Meathead. For each show, we posit a thought about a training exercise or training methodology, and then we deep dive into the minutia. We might argue and debate, or we might agree and tell each other how smart we both are. But at the end of the discussion, we both decide if we smash or pass the topic of the day. Today, we're also going to start a new segment with Dr. Marv called Throw It At Me.
It's going to be the Prehab, Rehab, Rodeo Roundup.
Love that. And I'm going to introduce it from the next show on as the Prehab, Rehab, Rodeo Roundup.
There we go.
Yeah! Okay. Remember, every time you comment on the show on YouTube, you'll be included in a drawing at the end of each month to win a $150 shopping spree for EliteFTS.com, 5 pounds of Team Skip protein from TrueNutrition.com, and you'll receive Dr. Marv's online bodybuilding anatomy course. The more times you respond, the better your chances of winning. We'll post the winner for the month on my Intense Muscle IG account, and we'll also reach out to the winner via their YouTube account. It's your Posit, Dr. Marv. What do you think?
It is. So today, this is going to be a fun conversation. We'll probably both get on our soapboxes a little bit, which could be good,
Always
could
a good
be
thing.
bad. Yep. So my posit is, and I think you would agree. I think most people who've been in the game for a long time would agree. When I'm going to the gym and I'm training and I'm looking around, I see 90% of new people, new to the gym, lifters. They're doing movements I called the sniper rifle. They're doing sniper rifle movements, the super slow, isolated, super light, kneeling, one arm side bending, lat pull down with 35 pounds and a bunch of highly technical advanced biomechanics training, but they haven't done the requisite work, i.e. the shotgun approach of heavy compound movement. So they're jumping, to movements that a very, very advanced person should be doing without getting the framework down.
Okay. I like it. And
Yep.
I think we might be on the same page here. I think I deal with it less than you do because we train in different gyms and we train at different times. But it's just as unnerving. I don't care what people do in the gym until, and this is going to sound bad, until they're in my way. And when I say in my way, everyone has the same right to be there that I do. So I don't think, I'm not one of those guys who I've been training for 40 years. Like I've somehow earned the right to have access to the machine and to the equipment that someone else doesn't have. But because I train in a smaller gym with less equipment, if you're doing a one-arm kneeling lat pull, you're on a lat pull that I might need to be using, and it becomes a little irritating. And I do want to advise, but these days I keep my mouth shut because bros don't want to hear it from an older bro. They've already heard it from their bros and they know that it works. Everybody's got the answers these days. They already know everything. So unless I'm asked, I'd never give unsolicited advice. Never. I know a thing or two about training, but I built a reputation in the bodybuilding industry for removing skin. If you have too much skin, call me. Remember, skin is overrated.
I'm the same way. Unless they're going to egregiously hurt themselves.
Even then, a lot of times, I leave it alone. You're doing the good thing. You're doing the right thing. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I know from experience that going over there and helping them is no different in their mindset than the old guy telling them what they already know. They got it all figured out and they're doing everything right. And I can't do it that way because I'm old and I'll hurt myself. So I do. I leave it alone. And here's the thing. They're made of rubber anyway. So they never really injure themselves doing dumb shit that day. But eventually it'll get them. And unfortunately, I won't be there to be able to see it.
Yeah.
To go, yeah. That's what I do when I see things. Yeah. Just, anyway.
Yep. We got the gist. Yep.
So, so we're going down this rabbit hole. It's a big one. There's a lot of things in there. So I'm going to hand it to you.
Yep.
Take it and run. The reason is I'm still a little foggy. I got some I got
Fair.
some carbs in
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
thinking straighter than I was,
Yeah.
but I'm still a little foggy.
Yep. That's fair. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, look, if you're, 160 pounds soaking wet, you don't need to be worrying about isolating the iliac division of your lats with this biomechanically optimally pull that you saw on social media. And I recognize I literally have bodybuilding anatomy and meathead biomechanics 101 course showing optimal biomechanics. But what do I stress? This doesn't matter if you're not training hard enough, you're not eating your face off. So ideally, you're combining hard training with the cool meathead biomechanics that I love, combining it with progressive overload, combining it with progressive eating, right? And you're doing big movements, because most of the kids I see, especially at the gym I train at during the week, just because it's a younger crowd, I mean, it's all single arm isolation, I'm like, when's the last time you did like a heavy one arm dumbbell row versus 5 different cable variations with light load? Like, you've got to earn the right. You've got to start with big compound movements, learn how to train. And by learning how to train, you and I harp on it all the time, get perfect execution, robot reps, whatever word you want to use, learn how to train intensely. For bodybuilding, intensity means how close to failure are you getting, right? And learn how to just do big movements. I don't think you should be doing any sort of body part specialization phase for at least 3 years. That's just me. Let's see what you have, right? Because you just need to see what genetic cards you've been dealt, learn how to train, learn to fall in love with the process, learn what works for you. But again, yeah, they'll do 30 sets. And I'm like, but not one of those was more than 80 pounds. Like, mechanical tension still matters. And this is not like hypertrophy, mechanisms podcast, but it's just, hey, earn the right to worry about that type of stuff. And that should be your finishers, not your meat and potatoes, your main movements. What do you call them? Your progressive sets? Like, you have a terminology.
Openers. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Openers for
So
sure.
your openers and your loaders, and then your finishers, right? Like,
right.
I just see people doing finishers their whole workout.
Okay, I'm going to play the other side for just a second, and understand that before I say what I'm going to say, I'm with you. I'm with you. There's too much focus on what we discuss here, which is the minutia. So sometimes the minutia matters, and a lot of times it doesn't matter. And it also depends on the level, basically where you are in your training, how advanced you are, whether you're a newbie, that sort of thing. But I will say this. I don't think what they're doing is necessarily bad. Because but depending on how they're doing it and to what degree they're doing it, I think is where I have a different, opinion. I don't think from an activation standpoint that a single arm lat pull is a bad idea. What I think is a bad idea is when these movements and this approach and this philosophy, as you refer to as the sniper rifle approach, becomes the vast majority of your training. That's more the issue with me. And again, look, I don't care if you go in and you waste an hour and a half of your day doing shit that I don't think is very efficient or optimal. At the end of the day, I go home and what someone else does in the gym doesn't impact my progress. My day, I forgot about it 2 seconds later after I've seen it. But it is disappointing to see people latch on to something that is, I don't want to say novel, but relatively new, and think again, and this is look, these are the studies, guys. Okay. This is the guys that lean toward predominantly academia, and they don't have the experience, and they aren't thinking logically like, you know what, Keown may not have gotten big doing these one arm movements, but maybe he would have gotten bigger had he done these when he first started. And it's illogical. It doesn't make sense. But if you're going to open and you have an activation issue, as an example, if I start to go heavy too fast with back movements, I will not feel that everything is balanced left to right. Okay. So I can see where maybe opening, it's not a bad idea, but it needs to be limited, and it needs to be a small percentage of your overall training for each body part. Then I don't have any I don't have any issue with that. If the rest of your workout is clanging and banging, that great. Open with it, get that garbage out of the way, or the things that really don't matter as much, and start grinding. Cool. Finishing, you know how I feel about finishers. Some of the listeners may not. I'm not big on finishers from an isolation standpoint because the contractile force later in the workout for that muscle group is usually not very good. In fact, if it is good, the sets that were supposed to be producing growth were not very effective if you still have strong contractile force to be able to squeeze and contract the muscles for, say, a cable fly or a one-arm isolative type of movement. Leg extensions might be a little bit of a little bit different, but even then, if you're just going to bang away on leg extensions and there's not much contractile force there, you're not getting very much out of them. Leg curls, things like that, more the isolative type movements. So I can see, and I'm okay with them being used in a very limited fashion. So you agree, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's my PSA is earn the right. And if you're going to do them because you're having fun, like that's great. I think it's awesome that the gym is more popular than ever before. And even if it's for social media as motivation, kids are in the gym, or folks, no matter what age they are, more people are in the gym now than ever before. That's awesome. So like, I'm not getting annoyed with it. This is more of a PSA saying, hey, quit doing the sniper rifle when you haven't done the shotgun. Also, what got the big guys big is not necessarily what they're doing now that we've talked about, right?
Agreed.
Like you see these advanced guys doing these advanced movements. Yes, because they need to bring up that 1% of the 1% on their body, but that's not how they built there. And fun facts about Keon, he never trained his hamstrings directly till he made the Olympia. And
is that right? I didn't even know that.
He is the most, and he's the most genetically gifted person maybe ever, even more than Flex. Like structurally, I think he's the prettiest we've ever seen.
I can't argue that.
But he didn't train hamstrings till he made the Olympia. His favorite quad builder is leg extensions. Like tell me you're the genetic elite without telling me you're the genetic elite, and leg extensions is how you build your quads. Like that's awesome. Again, not throwing shade, just it is what it is. So kids see all these super advanced stuff, or we've talked about it, how to me it's nails on the chalkboard, the scientific base with S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier. Again, it's really trendy in marketing. The guys who started that actually have the right to do it, because my understanding is the first guys to do that was, Dr. Dean St. Mark, Kurt Havens, Vigorous Steve. Those guys, most of them are in academia. They could talk about that. But when you have these other kids saying, oh, this is a fact, this is EMG studies. Yes, we bring up EMG studies all the time on this, but we also say, man, they take them with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Like people are creating workouts based on an EMG. And guess what? Most EMG studies are going to be highly isolatory, because as I isolate a muscle and get it shorter, the EMG is going to pick up a higher reading than if I'm doing a compound movement with more muscles being involved, but there's actually a lot more mechanical tension at the actual muscle, which is the main driver of hypertrophy.
Agreed. Can we both agree that these movements are not going to provide much, if any, growth? I mean, I'm going to come at it and just be clear and just say my opinion on it is that they are to be used more for activation and more for a mind-muscle connection than anything else. And that is your beginner type of thing. That's why it's kind of an odd dichotomy in the sense that I think that they're doing these movements because they think they're more advanced, when in reality, they're far more newbie, because you're doing them because you don't have that connection. If you're so advanced, you should be able to go in and clang and bang. It doesn't take much. Now, as you age, because I don't want anybody to try to bust me here in the comment section going, well, wait a minute. You're not a newbie, Skip. You've been doing this since there were stone weights with holes in them. It's one of those things as you age where you have gained those, I call them the snap, crackle, and pop.
Mm-hmm.
The
Rice
snap,
Krispies.
crackle, and pops. Exactly. So there's a lot of working at when I go in and I warm up. There's two main things I'm focused on. I'm focused on working out the snaps, the crackles, and the pops. I'm working on range of motion being equal on both sides, and that activation. I said 2, but it's actually 3. I'm combining 2 with 3. And the third being that equal activation from left to right. If I go in, and back is a great example. If I go in and I just start going too heavy, I will feel one side more than the other. And if that it rarely happens these days because I'm very methodical with my warm-ups. But if it does start to happen as I start to climb with the weight, then I back off and I make sure that everything is balanced before I start to go up. Now, I think we should use some examples. I don't know if you have any studies, but even just some examples outside of, and some of them will be obvious, but outside of the most popular one that jumped into both of our heads, which is the one-arm kneeling lat pull, which is kind of funny too, because how many times, if you see 10 people do it, 8 of them, they're not doing it right anyway.
Correct.
Which is just kind of odd.
And 95% of them are under 200 pounds.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
I've got another one I'll throw at you that I think is a good example, and that is, I call it the front double bicep cable curl, where the high pulleys come from the side and you come in and you do curls this way.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Now, I'll admit, I left them alone for years. I'm like, that is just dumb. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm bored with my bicep training. I'll try them. I opened with them and I thought, you know what? It's not too bad. I have a pump in there that is not the same as my normal movements that I use, but there's an odd path for the biceps in that position. And it's also very easy. I busted my wife on this one. She's very strong and she likes to try to hang with me when she can. And if I'm being honest, the bitch can leg press like a man. And she could not train for 6 months and come in and after 2 months be leg pressing legit, knees to the boobs type of great mechanics. And I'm like, God, like, how do you do that? But here's an example. If you're doing this front double bicep curl like it should be done, it's a very limiting movement as far as the weight you can use. But if you rotate the elbow up and you get a little bit of that rotation at the shoulder, then all of a sudden you're able to move a lot more weight. And I'm like, no, girl, you're strong, but we got to keep with the mechanics here. You got to keep that shoulder externally rotated, but it's an odd path. So that's another example of an exercise that if you want to use it as an opener to get blood in there, okay, I guess great. But it's not going to be one of those exercises that you're going to come away 3 months later going, oh, yeah, the tape measure is moving. My thighs are getting bigger. No. It's not going to work that way. So that's one example. You have one that pops to the top of your head?
Yeah. Instead of doing, heavy compound movements for triceps, it's all isolation. And I mean, look, I used to really like it, that cross arm, 2-arm thing, right? To isolate the long head. Like there's merit to it. But if all of your tricep training is all isolation cables, like, man, like we've talked about this multiple times. Biceps are more of a squeeze muscle, right? Triceps typically are a lot heavier compound. Yes, do one isolation for long head, but you don't need 3 isolations for long head.
Right.
Do one isolation and then do your dips, your close grip bench, your JM presses. I love PGR pullovers. I know you're not a huge fan. Stuff like that versus all this crazy isolation stuff that also then, and it's awesome that they're doing this and they're excited about training. But now the other day I saw kids with a bench and then they had a strap to strap their arm so it wouldn't move to get this right angle. And I'm like, good Lord, like that is a lot. And you are 120 pounds soaking wet. And they did an entire hour's worth of arms on this machine, but it was all that. And I'm like, just do your compound movements like we've talked about. Do 1 or 2 isolations for arms. Live with compound, live with big big global movements?
Well, I take myself back. I started training at 14.
Mm-hmm.
And I take myself back to those teenage days, and I did a lot of that. So I am careful to not beat them up too much, the newbies, the kids, especially when they're young, because they are trying to figure out, what's right, what works for them. And I get that. I've been there. I think we've all been there. I did, I always get asked, what would you do differently knowing now or knowing then what you know now? And there are two main things. One doesn't kind of go with what we're talking about, but it's a nutrition thing because we only had the magazines. So I thought everybody was ripped and shredded all the time when they were growing until I saw a picture of, Lee Priest with a, eating, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. He looks like a slob. And I'm like, oh, wait, maybe he had to get huge and he didn't want anybody taking their pictures, or they don't take pictures when they're fat and they only take them when they're lean. And of course, now social media tells us that, there is a component to that. It also says, too, that we don't do what we used to do and just become a fat hog in the off season. But there is a middle ground there where you do have to feed yourself. And I did not do that as a teenager. I typically would take a baked potato and a can of tuna fish to lunch every day and want everybody to pay attention to me and ask me what I was doing, because I'm going to be a bodybuilder. I'm going to get really huge, man. And I wanted people to ask me about that because I wanted that attention. That's a teenage, newbie type thing anyway. But that doesn't pertain to the show because we don't talk about nutrition very much. The other thing, though, does, and that is I would just throw the kitchen sink at everything. And a lot of those movements were very, very isolative, when in reality, I should have been doing a lot more compound movements. Yes, I squatted. Yes, I bench pressed. But outside of that, there was a lot of isolation movement. You can't find a pec deck anymore, but I wouldn't train chest at a gym that didn't have a pec deck. So, for chest, things of that nature. We were limited with the machines, obviously, back then. iCarrion was out, Cybex was out, but I had to travel from where I lived to get to a gym that had that kind of equipment. It wasn't everywhere like it is now. So one arm overhead, tricep extensions as an example. Is it a bad movement? It's not a bad movement. Is it going to cause a lot of growth compared to a lot of other exercises? No. In this show, one of the main things we do is we talk about optimization, the optimal way to train. And it's not the same for everybody, but there are rules or parameters that do apply to the vast majority of people. And one of those rules is you're going to have a hard time getting big optimally with a lot of isolative movement, especially when you're starting out. And when you're starting out, the body is like a sponge anyway. It's almost any new stimulus is enough to create growth, but you still want to take advantage of as much growth as you possibly can. And that's where those compounds come in. So moving more weight with solid mechanics, with good rep speed, rep control, fluidity, green room sets and reps, if you will. Key to success, key to growth, at least to optimal growth. So that's what I think that's what we're trying to say. The shotgun approach versus the sniper approach.
Yeah, like earn the right, use it to get that mind to muscle connection. I'm not opposed to that. So why do I not like the kneeling one arm cable lat pull down? Well, by definition, you're limited on how much load you could do because your body weight is going to dictate how much of the weight stack you could counterbalance. There's not external stability. We know what I feel about stability and all that. With that said, there's still, that doesn't mean every movement has to be highly stable, right? But I'm going to choose a traditional lat pull down or a traditional pull up or chin or a one arm dumbbell row versus, 30 pounds on the stack. Oh, I'm side bending to get the lat fully shortened and then reaching out, like earn the right. And again, it's awesome that more people are doing the gym and they're excited about training, but I think a lot of people are getting frustrated, analysis paralysis, because they will initially get some growth, like you said, because you do anything, you're going to grow.
Sure.
But that's going to weigh off soon. And if you haven't learned bigger movements, how to brace properly, which we know I'm big at. You're mistaking the forest for the trees. You're majoring in the minors, minutia, whatever words you want to use.
Performance chiropractic and sports medicine in the Houston Bay Area, telemedicine and nutrition coaching all over Texas. And if you're not in Texas, don't worry. You still do consults through the educatedmeathead.com. Where you also find workout programs, seminar recordings, and online courses.
And every exercise is a skill. So also you trying to do 30 different movements per body part, you're not going to get good at any of them, right?
I'm going to end with this as far as my opinion on the topic. You swing too far. It's no different than any type of political position, social position, anything else. You swing too far to one side and you're focused too much on mechanics and control. You're losing optimization. If you swing too far to the other side and you're too focused on the amount of weight that you're moving from point A to point B, and it's at the, I guess, not at the risk, but at the expense of mechanics, then you're not optimizing your training and you're opening yourself up to injury. At least with the mechanics, they're not going to injure themselves. I'll give them that. But if you're not going to injure yourself ever, but your growth is going to be 1/10 of what it would be if you could get to that middle ground, then, I mean, this is an ROI game. You got to balance out that rate of return. So based on the investment, and you need to try to find that middle ground. Maybe it is giving up a little bit of the mechanics if those mechanics are just way too rigid, because it can happen. We see that too. We're all about mechanics, but then people take that too literally and they're just focused on the mechanics. I remember there was a time I went through bench pressing and I could not get over 115 without feeling, oh, it's a little more on the one side than the other. What? 115 pounds? I had a 35 on each side.
Yeah.
I got to grow from that. What the hell is that all about? But there is a common ground, and that is you don't necessarily need to be, this is my opinion, you don't necessarily, it doesn't need to be progressive overload all the time. If that's the case, then we'd all be benching 900 pounds after we train chest for 20 years. That's clearly not going to happen. So that does provide progressive overload, provides growth and hypertrophy. No one ever would deny that or question that. But it's not the only way to grow. And it's not the only way to create hypertrophy. So there has to be that middle ground. And so much more happens in that middle ground. You get out here and you play around, you get outside of the box. Get outside of the box, experiment, do your thing. But you're going to find that optimization and everything being more optimal somewhere around the middle.
When are extremes the answer? Never.
Very, very rarely. Good point. Yeah.
But like, that's what people gravitate to because it's different. They find their tribe, ancestral DNA wanting to fit in, all that stuff. Because I'm drawing a blank. I know. So John Jewett comes to mind where he's a big mechanics guy, but he's also moving major weights. Right. So like
Nick Walker.
Yep, exactly. Like they're doing that, but they're still moving significant load, but their mind to muscle connection's so great. And then I'm drawing a blank on his name.
While you're trying to get his name, I'll say that those two people also did not start gaining that size by doing the training that they're doing now. They were clanging and banging.
Yep. And then there's one other guy, I can't remember his name. Golly, he always tells poop stories and he owns a dispensary. He's a great bodybuilder, great mechanics. God, I'm drawing a blank. But he'll say, he's known for mechanics and robot reps. And he's like, I get tagged all the time with these young kids and they're moving super slow, but they have, 40 pounds on the bar. When do you look at my training? I have, 300. Now you're not going to be as strong as him. He's a pro bodybuilder. But again, you've got to have that blend of load, mechanics, execution, and intensity.
Agreed. Like we got to smash or pass it.
Yep. So obviously, since I brought up the Posit, I'm going to smash, earn the right to get the sniper rifle out. It's awesome to experiment, but use it more as an activation or as a finisher. It should not be the bulk of your training.
I couldn't have said it better. So I don't have anything to add. We are, unfortunately and oddly, 100. I say unfortunately because I always want to have something that we do counter each other with. But this time, It's just not, it's not going to happen. I'm okay with it if it's an activation issue or it's an opening issue and you're doing it to connect. No problem. But it should make up a very, very small amount of your training. From there, it should be clanging and banging. Gross stuff, gross sets is what I call it. There's different monikers depending on who, what training protocol you're using, but it's all the same thing.
Yep.
So I'm definitely going to smash on shotgun over sniper, but with the occasional, activation if you need it for mind muscle. So we're on the same page. Smash.
Love
Good deal.
We're going to take a break from intimate time. Skip and I were talking. It's been great, but I'm sure listeners after 22 intimate times, they're kind of sick of hearing about us. And we're starting to run out of ideas to ask each other. Let's be perfectly frank.
Yeah, exactly.
But all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight one movement that I commonly prescribe in office that I think is really helpful. Big bang for your buck. And it could be prehab, preventing injury. It could be rehab, getting over an injury, and just stuff that I think is going to help performance. And it would apply to all types of lifting. So not just bodybuilding, your recreational, your strongman, your powerlifter, your CrossFit, whatever. And so the first one I want to put on everybody's radar that everybody poo-poos it when I ask, especially my strength athletes, my guys who are, I pull 600, 700, 800 pounds from the floor without straps. I don't need to work on grip strength. The good old fashioned rice bucket. It's fallen out of favor, and I am a huge fan of it. I learned about it from the free solo rock climbing world. If you don't know who those guys are, they are lunatics or very brave people, however you want to view it. And they will rock climb with no ropes. The best documentary on that is literally called Free Solo. Highly recommend it. I've watched it at least 3 times. And I will say when the dude is climbing over 3,000 feet on Yosemite on the Dawn Wall without a rope, my heart is in my throat, pounding a million miles an hour watching this guy do that.
Yeah.
And they are big. Now they will use even sand. Their grip strength so hard. They do a lot of hanging from fingers and doing pull-ups with fingers. And then they're doing a lot of grip stuff. And I think rice bucket's awesome. So, everybody thinks grip strength is all these forearm muscles, right? That is true. But just like with the foot I've talked about before, you've got a lot of small muscles that reside only in your hands. And strengthening those is a great way to build up grip strength. I hate the term bulletproofing, but if you're going to call a movement bulletproofing, this is one of them for wrist, elbow, shoulder, the whole 9 yards. So a couple of things to keep in mind. One, the first few, I like getting an old 5-pound protein tub because it already kind of has like the closer up top. You could see on the screen. That's what we use in office. That's what I use at home. Bucket full of rice. If the rice is too hard, you could get dried beans, right? The larger the object, the easier. The smaller the object, the harder. That's why it's crazy. The rock climbing guys are doing sand and stuff like that. And you're just going to work your hand in it. Right. So you're going to stabilize and work your hand in it. Now, depending on what you do, your scenario, I say, hey, for Gen Pop or your recreational lifter, your goal is to work your way up. It's not going to happen immediately. It's actually pretty humbling. You're going to work your way up to 3 minutes straight per hand of constant movement. For my power lifters, my strongman, people where grip strength really, really matters, that goes to 5 minutes. You're going to be blown away by the pump in your forearm, how vascular your forearms are by the time you're done. You'll feel a pump in your hand, which is a weird sensation, right? But it is humbling, but it is awesome. You're going to obviously, people don't realize this. The first few times it's going to make a huge mess from all the rice flour. So do it outside unless you want your significant other yelling at you or vacuuming or cleaning up the area, because it's going to make a mess until you work that rice in or whatever you're using. But it's a big thing. I also find it, even though the research on tennis and golfers' elbows says finger extension isn't the biggest thing for rehab prevention, I will say anecdotally, my patients who have a history of tennis elbow or golfer's elbow who do the rice bucket typically don't have returning flare-ups, right? And it could be coincidence, but with, how many people I've helped with that, it's hard to ignore. It's almost 100%. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head where they had it, they religiously did rice bucket and it came back. Now, a common theme with prehab, rehab, and I preach this all the time in office, making the change is harder than maintaining the change. So ideally you're doing it, once a day for a period of time, then you could go every other day. I think, 3 times a week is great. Once you get that 3 to 5 minutes, just keep it there, right? But if you're starting to get cranky elbows, cranky hands, do that. If you have arthritis in your hands, right? So I'm going to try and shorten this up because otherwise this is going to turn into a 20-minute presentation. But arthritis is gray hair of bone, right? Everybody's going to have it. Don't let anybody fearmonger you. But you could have a ton of arthritis in a joint and have no pain. But if your body has an inflammatory response to arthritis, you will have pain. Well, what is anti-inflammatory? Exercise. It's really common as we age to get arthritis in this thumb joint. And all my arthritis people with hands, if they start doing the rice bucket, their pain goes down. So this could help you just from a pain management standpoint in the future, let alone working on grip strength, helping your elbows out, because typically our extensors are 10 times weaker than our flexors, and that becomes an issue, especially if you're slanging and banging, doing the shotgun approach we just talked about. So I want to put on everybody's radar, good old-fashioned rice bucket. Be proactive, not reactive. You don't have to do it every single day if you don't want to, but a couple times a week. Watch your grip strength improve. You might get a little bit of hypertrophy in the forearms, probably not a ton, but it is really cool though when you're even somewhat lean and you do it 3 to 5 minutes straight, man, you got your Thomas guide map out with your veins just popping out. I personally like that. It grosses my woman out, but yeah, rice bucket, put it on your radar, start doing it, prevent injuries, increase grip strength. And we know, VO2 max and grip strength are better predictors of how long you're going to live than blood pressure.
Yep.
So,
good point. Now I want to point out too, it's not just rolling the wrist, it's opening the hands.
And going all directions, opening, closing, doing the thumbs, doing one at a time. So it's not just the wrist, because a lot of people go roll-ups, which is great, phenomenal. Like I love roll-ups. Wrist roll-ups are a great tool, especially for golfers' elbow, and then more golfers in tennis. And then after somebody's tennis elbow's healed, strengthen those. But working the muscles of the hand makes a big difference.
Good info. Good deal. Let's transition then to the listener or viewer questions.
Yep.
Got quite a few, I think.
Yes. So before we do that, we're going to do a mini posit, because this is a movement I want to bring up when we've been putting it off for over a month.
Yes.
So this is another PSA or posit number 2, a mini posit short discussion. Where the hell did B stance squats go?
I never had them in my toolbox.
I remember like 5 years ago, B stance RDLs were really popular. B stance squats were really popular. I love them.
But they were popular more for what? Rehab and...
Yeah, but then at least the guys I was following, I saw a lot of B stance RDLs on my feed for bodybuilding, not so much squats. So if you don't know what a B stance is, it's on the screen right now. I like it. I essentially call it a 1.25 leg squat. So it's not a full blown lunge or split squat, but it's not a squat. It's in between. And I'm a huge fan. Now, we do not have any studies on B stance. So I did look at studies from lunges, because we're just going to extrapolate that. And guess what? Fun fact, EMG, which I just said has limitations, but that's what we have. So that's what we look at. Guess what? A lunge has higher quad activation than a squat, because it's unilateral. More motor unit recruitment we've talked about, more of the load is in it. So yeah, I really like unilateral training, because guess what? Unilateral training, which is, one leg's forward, one leg's back, will translate to bilateral strength, i.e. squatting, but bilateral strength will not translate to unilateral strength. And if you've only done bilateral, you do a block where you start bringing in unilateral and you go back to your traditional bilateral, I guarantee you're going to smoke any squat PR you ever had before, without a doubt, especially my powerlifters. Powerlifters hate lunges, hate unilateral. I'm like, look, give me 8 weeks in your hypertrophy non-powerlifting block, right? Ideally, that's done post meet prep, but that's a different topic. And then you go back to your bilateral without fail across the board. people are stronger.
Okay.
And you don't do them, is what I gather.
I don't.
Okay.
It's not. No, I don't like the offset. I mean, I'm big for lunges.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not I'll be honest. When you first brought it up, I had to actually look it up to see exactly what it was to make sure that I understood it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it as and I don't remember. I guess I could remember it more a little bit as an RDL, but not as a squat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that I don't see some value in it. At the same time, we have lunges and we have squats. So I guess I just look at it and go, I'll lunge or squat. But that's just, that may be my old school mentality of, I'm not going to fix what isn't broke, but doesn't mean that there's not value in it.
Yeah, I just like it as another variation of a unilateral. Now, the key, though, is you're still treating it like you would. You're supposed to treat a split squat or a lunge where 80% of your load's driving through that front foot that's on the ground, right? Don't have your back foot too far back. So your back foot should be kind of starting where your front foot ends, your heel's elevated, and 80% of your load's driving through there. We know what I'm going to say about big toe knuckle pressure. So you're driving that. I'll do it on a Smith. I'll do it free. Man, when I really built up my squat, I would do B stance on a Smith, 3-second metronome negative, 1 second in the bottom, total dead stop, and then driving up. Holy hell. When I went back to squatting, that's when I set lifetime PRs, and that's when I had my aha moment. Obviously, your glutes are going to be massively used, and your hamstrings are stabilizers. So they are essentially isometric through any squat. So don't let anybody tell you a squat is hamstring driven, because it's not. But just wanted to say, hey, I like B stance. They're not done very often. I think they're a cool variation. They have a tool. Do them for a while and then go back to your squat pattern, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Always good to have options. Always good to have variety.
Yep.
Because ultimately, it could be considered a lunge just with a closer step or a closer stance.
Yep.
So closing up the lunge. I mean, there are times where I'll drive with a longer stride, and there are times where I'll drive with a shorter stride as well. So if I were to go even shorter, I'd have to call it a B stance squat.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's kind of back to our specialty bar episode. You can do the same movement pattern, but just switching the bar or your setup slightly, right? Like a close stance lunge is going to recruit differently than a wide stance lunge. So it just gives you things. I will say the single hardest thing I've done in the gym that I actually gave up, and it was mostly due to nerve issues. I gave up. I only did it 3 times in my life. And I will say I officially bitched out. It's only happened once or twice my whole training career. I psychologically could not get psyched up to do a muscle round B stance when you're switching legs the whole time, because it's, it's a 4 or 5 minute squat, and I have nerve issues. So when I bend my elbows, my nerves entrap. So your hands are going numb. It's excruciating. So that was the single hardest thing I've ever done. I would rather do John Meadows' drop set of death 3 times in a row than a muscle round B stance. But that's me. I do have a top squat attachment I've shown on here. I am starting to bring back Zercher squats and B squats, right? So 2 movements I was big on when I was younger. I haven't done them in years. We'll see if I become brave enough to try a muscle round on a B stance with my new attachment, but I still haven't gotten the fire in my belly to give it a go.
Right. Fair enough.
Awesome.
Now we'll transition.
Yes. Okay. We got a bunch, and we are doing great on time. Cool. So we'll knock out a bunch. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go in the order that I copied and pasted. So we should be able to get through 3, maybe even 4. From Jeremy Hosey, and I'm pronouncing his last name. Hyperextensions, vertical. I think he means horizontal, like again, parallel to the ground, vertical, or the more of a 45-degree variation of hyperextensions.
He might be talking about the angle of the machine.
Yeah, I think it's, or is it like the glute ham raise where you're pretty much parallel to the ground, or is it the reverse hyperextension 45-degree bench angle. And
I
he said,
think that's what he's talking about.
Yep.
And high. That's what I get out of it.
correct.
That 45 or higher. Yeah.
Yep. So is either better for glutes or rectors over there? I have some opinions, but I'm curious about yourself.
Well, I'll preface my response with the fact that I don't do hypers ever. It was something that, I say ever. Prior to my chronic lower back issues for years, from when I was young, I did do hypers. Never had an issue with them. Thought they were actually a pretty good movement. Started having those back issues and was never able to get the movement back in to a point where I felt like it was not a vulnerability. So, and I played with the mechanics because I thought maybe I'm curling under. Maybe there's too much range of motion here for the spine, because there shouldn't be. Correct me if I'm wrong, but mechanically it should be a hinge.
Yep.
Not a reverse crunch, if you will. But I did play around with a lot of different, and I could not get it to where I felt like it was a good idea. Now, on occasion, I will finish hamstrings and I will get into the position to be able to stretch and kind of put my hamstrings into a not a Dante stretch fascia type of, situation, but just kind of stretch them out.
Yeah.
And I even gave up on that. It's just not something that it was just a movement that I moved away from. It wasn't something, I just kept getting these little signs that it wasn't going to be a good idea. So as far as changing the angle for glutes and lower back, that's a tough one. I might have to leave it with you, because what I would say is the lower the angle of the lower body and the machine itself, I'm going to see far more erector. I would think glutes, arguably more glute, because I think that backs up the angle of what's the acronym? The glute G, not the GHR, but the essentially the reverse leg curl, lower back combination.
Oh, the reverse hyper. Yeah.
There you go.
Reverse hyper. Yeah.
But I don't know to what degree. So I better hand it off to you on that one, because I'm sure you have those black and white,
Well, yeah.
references.
So, yeah, I don't do reverse hypers because of my back. I would do them and I would get hurt really badly. So I gave up on them. Yeah, the ROI wasn't worth it. Most people don't do them right, where they're not really using hams and glutes, right? They're just cranking their low back and they're pissing it off. If you literally just look at, mechanics and physics, the 45-degree angle, if you do physics analysis, it's either the cosine or the sine of a 45-degree angle. Your body has to overcome 70% of the load. That's why you're really strong on an angle leg press, because there's only 70% of the load that your legs actually have to overcome. So you would extrapolate, the 45-degree angle is going to be easier overall because, physics and loading, there's going to be less of it, right? And you are correct in that the 90-degree angle is going to be a hell of a lot more lumbar extensors, right? And mechanical loading with some shearing force on the low back, which is why I pissed my back off. The 45 is going to be a lot more load to your hip extensors, so your glutes and your hamstrings, and reducing some of the lumbar stress. But again, most people, are cranking into anterior pelvic tilt and just smashing their lumbar spine together, pissing it off, versus letting the glutes and hamstrings do the work. So I think it's going to be to each their own, but I would say, if you want more erectors, the 90 flat. If you want more glute hamstrings, the 45. I will choose a reverse hyper every single day of the week and twice on Sundays than this reverse hyper extension. It is job security when people do that, because a lot of people get hurt doing it. So to each their own. If you don't have a reverse hyper machine, I got this from Matt Wenning, the super smart PhD powerlifter, where you use a heavy band, and I'll have Chris throw it up on the screen. That's your workaround If you don't want to do what I used to do, which is, incline bench, ankle cuffs, band, it was such a pain in the ass to set up a DIY reverse hyper, not a hyper extension, but a reverse hyper. The band is great. Super easy to set up. Get you close there. There's a little bit less of the distraction, the gapping of the low back, but it's still a valuable tool. But
what was that term you used for the anterior delt on a high cable fly where the muscle shortens and you lose?
Oh yeah. Active insufficiency.
There you go.
If a muscle that crosses two joints, not all muscles that cross two joints do this, but if you start getting it too short and it can't produce force. So what Skip is referring to, your upper pec has active insufficiency once your arm is above 90. Your front delt doesn't. That's why a lot of people's front delts will take over on incline pressing movements if you don't have the bench angle right that we talked about.
So are you going to get that on a reverse hyper or on a hyper extension that is lower? Active insufficiency with the erectors.
Erectors do not have active insufficiency off the top of my head.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, they don't. The glutes for sure don't. The quads don't.
Why do the erectors not?
It's because they're crossing so many. They're running through your entire spine, so they're crossing so many. And you would have to, like most people's spine would prevent them from bending over so much, right? Like unless you're those hypermobile people who could do a reverse handstand and talk. Yeah, like you and I, the average person lifting ain't gonna have that mobility.
Okay, so but we're talking about it. I mean, I'm trying to make sense of it. I'm not as much trying to question. But we're not considering every disc a joint, are we?
No, but it's gonna act on multiple spines, and it's not all they're called biarticular. Forget you want to be very minutia based, where it's the muscles crossing two joint. Not all biarticular muscles have active insufficiency.
Okay.
So it's interesting. Your upper pec does, but your middle and your lower pec does not. Like it's really interesting how some of them do and some of them don't.
Because that's what was equating. I was thinking if you were low on that there would be some active insufficiency there once you got to a certain point in the erectors. I could certainly see where that wouldn't be an issue with the hamstrings or with the glutes.
Correct, because you would have to be bending the knee to get the hamstring fully shortened, so it's impossible because your knee is straight on both a reverse hyper or a reverse hyper extension. Yeah. And again, when I bring up the active insufficiency, even with my course, when we've talked about, it's a fun fact. Most people, it doesn't matter unless you're like me. My upper chest was my lagging body part next to my God's gift of shoulders, which would just grow looking at a traditional 45-degree incline bench. So I had to be like, then when I learned my upper pec has active insufficiency and I've got a steep sternal angle, I've got to lower the incline. So now my pecs have the fire. So like if you have a lagging body part, it's usually next to your dominant body part. And if you're doing a bunch of movements that could be classified as active insufficiency, then get away from that. So that's when that really comes into play. Again, sniper rifle, but you shouldn't worry about that. In my mind, at least this is my thought, like still be smart with your training, but you worrying about active insufficiency and it's month 3 in the gym is mistaking the forest for the trees, which was the whole purpose of the original Posit. Yeah. But I don't prescribe them a ton, but EMG data is pretty damn good for hamstrings and glutes for reverse hyperextension. They are. It's just I piss my back off. And very rarely do you see them actually being used in the glute. But if you know how to do them, they could be an awesome adjunct. One of our listeners, Rob, he sent me a video because I was helping him put together a workout program. He sent me a video and his were perfect. And I was like, damn, it's been a minute since I've seen a hamstring and glute dominant reverse hyperextension. Like kudos. I actually need to ask him if I could take his footage to make a tutorial because I'm not doing it. That'll piss my back off. I might do like an isometric hold if I'm bored, but even then, that makes me nervous.
We have Cosmo who wants to say
nice.
Hi.
Hello,
for those who
Cosmo.
don't know, I'm the cat guy. This is Mr. Cosmo. Mwah.
That's one of how many?
Well, I wasn't going to say, but I do have 5 cats. I would only have 2 if our 3 daughters did not each bring one home at one point.
Yeah.
And my 2 are my Bengal and my Savannah. So I have an F2 Savannah and an F4 Bengal. Usually everybody's heard the Bengal at some point because Bengals are very loud. Today he decided to be loud right before we started recording, and then he shut up after that. So
nice.
4 o'clock in the morning, he is talking to you. He wants you to play with him, and he's trying to wake my wife up. It's crazy shit. Anyway.
Interesting. Yep. Yeah. Good. Okay. Moving on. Next one from Steve B4077. He gave us a nice compliment, which is great. Dr. Marv, I've been doing the booty band wall climbs with a pillowcase nearly daily for a while now, and it has really fixed my shoulder. Has this gem been discussed on this show? Because when I went on BSG the first time, or the second time, when you and I did it together, I did the upper body one. Yeah. So that's where he picked it up with. He said he picked it up on that. So has this gem been discussed on this show, and how often do you recommend executing it? So if you're not familiar, it's on the screen right now. It is phenomenal for shoulder rehab, prehab, workout warm-up, posing warm-up, and overall shoulder health. Your serratus anterior is your most undertrained muscle in the entire upper body, according to a study. It is big. When I took a world-renowned international sports chiro's shoulder course, she said strengthening the serratus anterior will fix and resolve 80% of chronic shoulder issues. Now, I think 80% is a little high, but it demonstrates just how important this muscle is because we typically underdevelop it. So I like it because you're rehearsing a lat spread or a front relaxed, right? So serratus anterior, let me pull up my anatomy app. Let me fire that up. But serratus is vastly undertrained. People poo-poo it. They don't want to do it. And I love it because it'll humble people no matter how big and strong they are. You will be shaking like a leaf the first few times you do it, and it's awesome. So the muscle that we are working on, so we're doing this again. So perfect. All right. So serratus anterior. It is one of 2 muscles that do what action, Skip? What do I always talk about with the shoulder?
The serratus anterior, I am kind of.
Oh, that's not fair. That was fair. So it's protraction, shoulder blade wide, but it does upward rotation of the shoulder, which is massive for shoulder health. So this is the serratus anterior. Its main job is shoulder protraction, which is flaring it out wide and not letting your shoulder blade pop off your rib cage, aka scapular winging. That could open you up to a bunch of injuries. That's not ideal. What this model doesn't show and why it's so big for chronic shoulder issues is it is creating space at the top of the shoulder joint. So we're not pinching and irritating tissue, right? So that's why it creates space in the shoulder joint that could get irritated from bad shoulder blade mechanics, which is why bicep issues are so common. Because once again, this should be a design recall in the human body in my mind, but it is job security. We have these hooks on the shoulder blade. If we don't have proper shoulder blade control, creating space, it's going to be pinching, especially the long head of your bicep and this rotator cuff muscle called your supraspinatus, which is the most commonly torn rotator cuff muscle. And guess what? Elderly females have the highest prevalence, and it's wear and tear from years of this spot here combined with poor blood flow. It'll spontaneously tear. So the serratus does that shoulder blade wide motion, which will create space, get your shoulder blade control there. You're not irritating it. And
why is it more common with female than male?
That I'm not.
Is it for making sandwiches?
And we just got canceled.
I know I did. Yeah, if my wife listens to the show, that was my last sandwich.
Yep. So, then if you don't have a booty band, he was referring to, I told people, save your money if you don't want to spend money on booty bands, and you could use a pillowcase. You could obviously use like an exercise ball or a foam roller, but I like something to give you outward tension on, right? Because that'll help you connect to it. What I said earlier with the rice bucket, making the changes harder than maintaining. So ideally you're doing 2 to 3 sets of 5 reps twice a day in the beginning, once before posing or working out, then, then once a day, then every other day. I think it should be a part of every single workout warm-up. And if you are a competitive bodybuilder who poses, man, even a single set of 5 reps could do wonders for your posing. So I approach that. It is foundational. It is big, like the rice bucket. I think if people would do that a handful of times a week proactively, they're going to set themselves up for success.
Let me ask you a question that I'll ask the listeners and the viewers as well, and I want to hear in the YouTube comment section from them. I came up with a protocol during this last cut phase that I religiously did, and I don't even know that I really made it a point to until it just started doing it, and it was working, so I kept doing it. And then I realized I'm not going to not do this.
Yeah. Okay.
Prior to it started with back, then it went to chest and shoulders. And I say shoulders, I combine front delt work with chest. So I do chest and front delt work. And then another day I do side delts exclusively and arms. And then I do another day that's back. So basically 3 of my 4 days I'm doing this. And I'm not going to explain exactly what I'm doing, but there is a protocol that I use to stretch and open up my rotator cuff muscles prior to training these muscle groups. And what I found is, we were talking about this before, about activation left to right. I got to the point where that protocol, which would take about 5 minutes, got me to the point where my rotators were so even on each side and not tight. And it actually benefited my posing. I would do it before I did my posing, that I would send my pictures so that everything was even. And everything was even to the point where, and my buddy, Dr. Petros Fragiskakis, longtime friend of mine, who does my E-stim,
dry needling.
Yeah, what's the Graston? Thank you. Graston, dry needling with E-stim, things like that, that really did help. It eliminated my need for that. It literally replaced it. So I'm asking you, and I'm asking, and no hard feelings if no one's interested, and the viewers, if they're interested in me taking the time on maybe the next show as a segment, or even as a question, viewer question, maybe the host question, to detail that protocol, because I will never now not do it. It is beautiful. And you would be able to explain why it works.
Yeah.
In the different motions that I do, because some angles I'd be like, okay, I can eliminate that angle, but it's just essentially and there are details to it that have to be done correctly. Like, as an example, the rotating, the external, internal, it's predominantly external. Rotation has to be done with, as an example, the lats spread versus the lats, or the lats open versus the lats not being open. Day and night, a huge difference. But I have about 4 or 5 main positions that I do religiously, and I'd like to go over it because I think people would be interested in it. There's no way that it would work as well as it has for me and not for everybody else.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. So we'll see if people are interested. I didn't mean to
put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Because if you may be interested in it, but maybe the viewers aren't, that's okay too. And there's no sense. If there's not interest, cool. But I do think that the viewers would find value in it. I was blown away by how effective it was. And it didn't take but maybe 2-3 weeks max before I was like, oh, this is money.
That's awesome.
Like, this has to be done.
Yeah. So once again, you can prep your body to pose or to lift. Like, you don't have to wait till you're in pain to do this proactive stuff or improve it. And yeah, I will dry needle or Graston or cup or manual work or whatever to make the initial tissue change, but the exercise is what's going to keep it, because that tissue change is going to be temporary by definition. You're only going to see me once or twice a week. That's up to 2 hours an entire week. You really think 2 hours is going to combat the rest of it if you're not doing movements or exercise to complement it. So yeah, that if people are interested, I think that'd be great.
Cool.
Good. Moving on. Next question, and you get to talk a lot more. I have some thoughts too, but this is from Justin Montgomery, 1255. Question for the next show. Would you guys compare online trainers versus in-person trainers? Maybe Skip could discuss why he decided to be one of the first online trainers and why not the normal in-person thing. Or you guys could talk about the difference between the two, either from the client or from the professional's perspective.
Fair enough. It's actually an easy one for a couple reasons. Number one, my mom told me, and I was not sure until I got into bodybuilding, that I was so special and I had so much to offer so many people that I didn't want to be limited by a demographic that I could drive by this very, very small circle or radius. No, really what it is at the end of the day, from a business standpoint, there's this. You can be a really good in-person trainer, and working with people in person one-on-one is great. I've done it. I'll only do it if it's very lucrative, and it was down in Fort Lauderdale. If you can get high-end clients, if I can get high-end clients and they pay well and they're consistent and reliable, I only had 6 clients. Of those 6, I had 2 cancellations in a year.
Nice.
It just doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah.
So I was going to ride it till the wheels fell off. Hourly rate was great. In fact, 2 of them trained at the same time at a full rate. I didn't ask them to do that. They were friends. The one wanted to bring the other one in. And I told him, you guys work it out amongst yourself because I'm not dealing with any drama bullshit. You know, one doesn't show up, you're pissed. One doesn't show up, you both don't show up. They were like clockwork. Absolutely clockwork. We had so much fun that I miss training them. Mm-hmm. So it's great to do one-on-one, but the reality is the reach online is vast. As an example, well over 60% of my clients are international. They're not even in the United States. It's part of the reason I have such messed up sleep schedule and work hours, not because I'm against it, but because over the years, it has evolved to the point where, my UK clients are getting up at 2 or 3 in the morning, my time. Well, I'm still working because I raised 4 kids, and that's the only quiet time out of the day. The other thing is while raising 4 kids, I could be at home, working at home with the flexibility of setting that client time to do client work when I wanted to do it versus having to be punctual. We all have our flaws, the most non-punctual person you will ever come to know, because for 20, 24 years, I haven't had to be anywhere on time. The grocery store doesn't care when I show up. The gym doesn't care when I show up. I don't have to meet clients. So it's great. But when I do have to meet somebody, it's not that great. I'm like, oh, wow, traffic is bad at this time. Oh, I'm late because of traffic. No, I'm late because of traffic because I did not know that it was going to take 25 minutes to get 4 miles. Mm-hmm. So I gravitated that way, but understand I was in the bodybuilding community, the online bodybuilding community anyway. So it just naturally and kind of organically kind of went that route. I always tell people this because people will say on occasion, I'd rather work with someone who's local. I have no problem with that. If that's your preference, that's cool. But know this. You're getting the best guy in that small radius and in that area. He might be good. He might be great. But would you rather not have the best guy or the best options? I'm not saying I'm the best. There's a lot of people who are good at what they do. And I've always said that. I am not Mr. King shit and everybody else is dumb. I've never been that way. But if you want the best, they are probably not going to be in your area, in that small radius that they want to drive or you want to drive. It's much like gyms. A lot of great gyms out there, but they might be 400 miles away. So if you had access to that gym without having to commute there, you might want that, you might want to do that. Some people do, some people don't. You have to be good when you work with someone online that you understand and trust. Well, they're not seeing me, but they're seeing video and they're seing pictures. Is that better? Some people who, especially local trainers, they'll be like, no, that's not as good. Well, you might not be good at it because you haven't done it for 20 years. You can't tell the difference between good lighting and bad lighting, a little bit of shadow versus not having a little bit of shadow. You don't know what to look for in pictures and the subtleties and what to look for. I do. And a lot of the people who do what I do, think about it. The best trainers online are arguably the best trainers, period. And you don't live by them, and they see 2% of their clients one-on-one, if that. So you got to wonder, what are the limitations? Are there any at all? A lot of times it just comes down to preference, the client's preference. And ultimately, that's what matters. The client's paying. The client needs to be comfortable with whether that trainer is going to be local or if they're going to be online. The other thing is if they're online, what is the accessibility? What's the response time? Are they going to treat you like you're their only client? Or are you going to not get a response from them for 72 hours, 4 days, 5 days, once a week? All that factors in.
Yeah. So I was a trainer off and on for over a decade, mostly in person, then started switching online. I will say online training is way harder than in person. I think it would be I think you would agree. It would be really hard to be a trainer who never did in person for a period of time, right? Because you've got to pick up on watching video. You're not there in person. You can't touch your client to say, hey, do this, do that, right? That tactile sensation's big for in person, especially if you're teaching a newbie. Yep. And now everybody wants to be an online trainer and coach, and they've never worked with anybody in person. Online is way harder than in person. You are limited by how many. That's why the trainers who make the most in person typically do group, because they could work with 20, 30, 40 people at a time. Like the boot camp stuff, right? It's super lucrative. Does it really help people? No. I mean, it's better than nothing, but boot camps are one of the
very individualized. For sure.
Boot camps are one of the biggest scams around, right? The hit boot camp classes. Good God. Look at all the body types in there. They're all the same for a reason. But as a trainer, that's when you make the most money. One reason why I left 2 gyms and then started my own thing was one spot really wanted me to do group, and I was like, it's not helping people. And the other told me to slow down clients' progress so I could get more sessions out of them. And I told them to F off, and I left. Yep. But yeah, I think if you're going to hire somebody online, I would strongly encourage to figure out what their background is. How long have they done this? Did they ever do in person? Do they still do in person? Online's 10 times harder. It really is.
And I think it's easier to do due diligence when they're online.
Correct.
Because if they don't have a reputation and their brand doesn't have a reputation, what does that say?
Yep.
So it's difficult. If you're not a very good trainer, but you want to be good in your area, don't go online. Don't jump into the giant sea of turds and battle not only the real bad, shitty trainers who haven't proved anything, but you don't have to battle with the trainers who've been around forever and are so well established that they don't have to advertise or do the I've got 3 sessions open type thing.
I have 3.
Which is funny because I have to come up with a way to do this because I don't know if I've told you this or not, but at the beginning of the year, I purposely kept my client load low for 2 reasons. I knew I'd be prepping and I knew we were going to start the show. So I wanted to be able to focus my time on that because I'm never going to take on, I've been doing this too long. I know the client base I can handle to still have my clients feel like, oh yeah, there's, I'm covered. Like he's always there. I'm his only client versus battling to keep up with everything. So I'm down. My client base now is down roughly 40%. And I'm going to start adding clients back in now that the show is running optimally. We have our routine and I'm done competing. So I now have this time where I can add them back and I can't just go out there and go, hey, I got 5 slots open. better get on them fast.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing.
It's wild how everybody has only 5 spots. Like, man,
right. Yes.
That's so wild. You only have 5. So
and you're in so much
else.
demand that they're going to fill so quickly,
yeah,
which is funny because quite frankly, mine will.
Yeah.
But that's because I've been around for so long.
Yep.
So,
and just know, if you don't think the people with hundreds of people on the roster, no, I'm not saying this is not a blank statement, but ChatGPT is being used a hell of a lot more than you would think from people who have way too big of a roster who cannot keep up. Yep. So just keep that in mind.
Reputation is everything at this point. Correct. Every day that goes by, it becomes that much more important. Do your due diligence. Do it. Not, you're in great shape. Are you a trainer? There are people who contact me. Oh, you're in really good shape. Are you an online trainer? And then it's like, you know what? If you don't know who I am already,
correct,
just work with someone else.
Yep. And to each their own, but usually the cheap people are cheap for a reason.
Yep.
Not always. Some people purposely have just made the decision to not raise the rate so they could help more people.
No, but as a rule, it's typically
that's the exception, not the rule.
Right.
But like, I'll give, Dusty Hanshaw talks about that. Oh, I could charge way more, but I don't want to limit myself. I commend that. I commend him for that. Like, that's his decision, but that is the exception, not the rule.
Yep.
Good. And then last one, this will be quick. Another one from Jeremy Hosey. So he's getting entered twice.
Nice.
Smash or pass, Zercher deadlift. Because I'm not doing a full episode on Zercher deadlifts.
I'm passing the hell out of it.
Same here. Love Zercher squat. Zercher deadlifts are very functional and cool. It is job security for me as a performance chiropractor. To be all that is man, load that bar up, pick it up from the ground. My hat's off to you. I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole.
You know what? I'm going to pass on a Zercher squat too, though. I'm just not a fan. I know that it's in your wheelhouse, and I respect that, but it's not mine. Nah.
But think about also, it's more strength based. And then why is my number one message to everybody, you're not broke, you're not fragile? Because a shitty ortho and a shitty PT made me feel like I needed to live in a bubble in my early 20s from my back injury. So for 2 years, I was mortified to put a bar on my back. So for 2 years, my only squat variations were goblets and Zerchers.
I get it. I totally get it.
But brutal movement. We talked about it in working out short on time. I like them. You don't. Again, it's variation. There's multiple ways. I really like them for athlete-based stuff or strength-based stuff. So they're in all of my athlete programs.
What about a Jefferson squat? You're probably cool with that, right?
Oh, the Jefferson curl thing?
What's a Jefferson squat, right?
So I know the Jefferson curl where you're reaching down. Jefferson.
Okay, I've got.
Oh, yeah. When it's like the bars between your legs.
Between your legs.
Yeah. It's interesting. Not the best for max loading, but for a finisher, something fun, new core stuff, great. I've never done
in your gym and you got limited equipment.
Exactly.
I can see it.
You're a garage trainer, or you want to be like Kai Green, but that's not how he.
I thought of Kai.
But guess what? That's not how he built his size, folks.
No, exactly. But I'm still going to pass on him. But I do see that there's always an exception.
Correct.
So if I had a garage gym and I was limited on what I could do, maybe I would do it. Outside of that, it's a hard pass.
Yep.
We got to get to getting. This is Skip and Dr. Marv splitting. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. If you didn't, like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell anyway. It should sound a little something like this. Remember, if your question or topic is chosen to use on the show, you'll go into a drawing and we will randomly choose one winner at the end of each month. We'll receive a 5-pound bag of Team Skip protein from TrueNutrition.com. Be sure to use the TrueNutrition.com link in the closing credits to save 10% on not just Team Skip protein, but every supplement they sell. Not only do I use Team Skip protein with my clients, but other top prep guys have their clients use my protein because it's that good. Dr. Marv, how can someone reach out to you if they have questions or if they want to work with you?
Easiest way is Instagram at dr.marvin.saysdc. My office is in the Houston Bay area. I do telemedicine all over Texas. And then theeducatedmehead.com. Doing a lot of consults, starting to do custom workout routines. I have my courses, seminars, workouts, all that jazz.
Nice. If you have too much skin, that means if you're fat, Not if you have loose skin.
You've got to clarify
I'm
now.
gonna
This is
say
wild.
I have to say it every time now.
Yeah.
I've never had to say it before. Everybody thinks I'm going to take care of their loose skin. I'm like, no, if you're fat. I'm talking about if you're fat. Go to teamskip.com and you'll find all my contact information, including Team Skip merch. If you're not a very good looking guy, wear one of these. You'll still not be very attractive, but at least you'll have a cool sweatshirt on. Of course, you can follow me on Instagram at Intense Muscle. Keep in mind that this is a team of 3, not 2. Chris is the enigma behind the scenes, and he's responsible for visuals, graphics, and he also plays a huge role in the creative process. This project would not work without him. So from all 3 of us, it's been a business doing pleasure with you. Join us again next week for another episode of Between Two Dumbbells.
Loading team skip. Loading team skip.